House of Representatives demand to know whereabouts of Chinese medical personnel who visited Nigeria recently. You're welcome to the Gavel. I'm Linda Akibe. The House of Representatives is asking the Minister of Health for the full details of the activities and whereabouts of the Chinese medical personnel who came to the country in April. The resolution of the House stems from a motion of urgent public importance raised by Representative Dachung Bagos. Lawmakers say they are not satisfied with the statement of the Minister of Health that the Chinese medical personnel are not guests of the federal government, but that's of the Chinese firm in Abuja. The House, in a separate motion, also resolved to investigate the status of medical and pharmaceutical research in the fight against COVID-19 in Nigeria.
The whereabouts of 15 Chinese medical professionals who visited Nigeria in April is a source of concern to some Nigerians.
Those in support, please say aye.
The lower chamber is also concerned and is dissatisfied with the response of the federal government on the activities of the 15 Chinese medical professionals.
The House is aware that on the 3rd of April 2020, the federal government announced that an 18 team of medical personnel comprising of doctors, nurses, and other medical advisors will arrive the country along with a plane load of additional PPE on the 8th of April 2020. A 15-member team of Chinese medical personnel arrived in the country to share their experiences in fighting COVID-19 pandemic and were received at the Nnamdi International Airport, Abuja, by some government officials, including the Minister of Health. The Minister of Health, on the 14th of May 2020, in a new twist, reportedly told news reporters not to bother his ministry over the whereabouts of the Chinese medical experts who came into Nigeria to support the fight against COVID-19. While responding to questions at the daily Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, the Minister of Health said the medical personnel are not guests of the federal government, but CCECC, a construction company. The minister went further to say that I want to explain that first of all, I think not all of them are doctors. And I heard that some of them are technicians, but they are staff of CCECC.
Those in favor of the
House resolves that the Minister of Health must brief the Speaker on the whereabouts of the Chinese medical professionals.
Most governments around the world
7 matters of urgent public importance are raised and adopted, mostly related to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mr. Speaker, we're worried that Nigeria's low rural internet penetration and lack of preparedness for the e-learning system, lack of online educational curricula, and unaffordability of the necessary learning gadgets such as computers, tablets, and necessary tools, and low knowledge and skill set presents a huge challenge for us as a nation, and which may cause a major setback for the educational system and the students in the educational calendar.
That while countries are overwhelmed and occupied with their challenges, Nigeria appears to depend entirely on external interventions in the health sector for our economy. The House is conscious that Nigeria is endowed with qualified and talented scientists who are capable of developing indigenous cures for the disease. The House is mindful of the need for a homegrown approach in dealing with the threat and spread of these diseases. The House is also cognizant of the need for government action in assembling and mandating medical researchers towards developing indigenous solutions for our healthcare needs.
Again, aware that the partnership agreement between the federal government and the May and Baker Nigeria PLC, if implemented, will improve technical capacities and capabilities of Nigerian scientists and engineers and the value chain in Nigeria's pharmaceutical sector, and also expose them to technological advancements involved in vaccine production. Also cognizant that a successful production of local vaccines will help the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, and the Federal Ministry of Health to effectively tackle outbreaks, such as the recent outbreaks of gastroenteritis in Lagos, which claimed lives, and the current ravaging COVID-19.
Amendment.
The House also mandates its relevant committees to invite the Minister of Health and other health professionals to deliberate on the production of vaccines in Nigeria.
Mr. Chairman, it is important to note that the bill...
Following the need for an amendment of the Police Act in line with current realities, the House of Representatives considers and adopts the report of the Committee on Police Affairs.
There is a general complaint that the police are ineffective, they are not efficient, there is no transparency in their operations, they are not accountable in their operations, they are not friendly, they do not ensure fundamental human rights, particularly of people in police custody, and there is no community participation in running the police. It is on this note that there is need for repealing and reenacting this bill to achieve this affirmation, to have a more effective, more efficient Nigerian police, to have a police that will be transparent in their operations, to have a police that will be friendly, and to have a police that will observe this community policy.
Also urge the executive arm to prioritize food production.
A bill to enact the Nigerian Local Content Act to develop the different sectors of the country's economy scaled second reading.
A lot of success has been recorded in the oil and gas sector, but this success needs to be moved to every other sector of the economy. In this pandemic era, we're all aware that COVID-19 brought Nigeria to its knees. We could not even think of how to fund our budget because the revenue from the oil and gas sector was almost comatose. Today, we have an opportunity as a house to develop other sectors of the economy and to ensure that other sectors are revenue generating, that other sectors build capacity in terms of individuals and job creations. Today, Nigeria is one of the countries that the unemployment rate is so high. We need a bill that can guarantee employment for our teeming population. We also need a bill that can build capacity of our local companies. This is what this bill seeks to achieve, to build capacity of our local companies and to also ensure job creation for our teeming population.
Meanwhile, a motion on the need to diversify the economy to ensure food security in the post-COVID-19 era was raised.
The House notes the estimation by the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization that about 820 million people across the globe are already suffering from hunger while the dreaded COVID-19 pandemic rages. Also notes that Nigeria does not have a robust food reserve owing to the fact that the majority of the farmers still practice subsistence farming and there is inadequate availability of incentives to promote agriculture. Herdsmen crisis, post-harvest losses, and one-season practice. Aware that the ravaging COVID-19 pandemic and the attendant lockdown, there is a total disruption of supply chain in the food sector, as farmers have been prevented from attending to their farming activities in both subsistence and mechanized methods. There are obvious shortage of fertilizers, insecticides, and other agricultural materials, as well as non-existent access to banks, which are to inspect their farms as prerequisite to granting agricultural loans. Concerned that the crash prices of crude oil in the international market, being Nigeria's main source of revenue, the country is faced with the reality that poor economic planning during the boom days has been a major part of national dilemma, leading to urgent need to diversify into aggressive agricultural development to ensure sustainable food security after the COVID-19.
A senator from Sokoto State is extremely unhappy with the approach of the military in handling banditry in his state. Insecurity in the northern part of the country was a major topic of discussion in the Senate, with senators calling for an extension of the military's offensive against bandits in Katsina to neighboring states.
The situation really.
A federal lawmaker, Senator Ibrahim Gobiri, representing Sokoto East, is accusing the military of abandoning the people of his constituency and exposing them to attacks by bandits.
So far,
Senator Gobiri made the allegation while contributing to a motion on the activities of bandits in Niger State. He says many of the people in Sokoto State have fled to Niger Republic for safety, aided by the military of the neighboring country.
so far, we have lost about 300 people. And then at the same time, we lost about 5,780 cows, valued at 2.5 billion. In fact, we have been thinking of writing a letter to the federal government so that we can get reparation for this. Then the way I look at this issue is that the situation is so bad that we only get recourse, we only get help from the Republic of Niger, not even from Nigeria here. What is happening is that when there is a problem, when you call people from the Nigerian army, they will never come. Or they will come and stay somewhere about 4,000 meters and then start watching people being killed. And nobody is doing anything. But immediately you phone the commandant of Lulu, that is about 5 kilometers away. The guy will come in, the army officer will come with his troops, and they help the Nigerians there.
The sponsor of the motion wants President Buhari to extend the military offensive against bandits in Katsina State to other adjoining states.
The Senate aware, through a presidential spokesman, that President Muhammadu Buhari has authorized the commencement of a major military operation to sweep bandits and kidnappers out of Katsina State as major proactive measures by special forces to replace the reactive strike against the camp of these bandits and criminals.
The federal government needs to be very proactive by deploying to all the axes so that they will come the whole area, and then they will be able to achieve something out of it. But the way it's been done now, there's no way we will see to the end of this banditry.
At the end of the debate, the Senate asked President Buhari to direct the military to extend its operations against bandits to other adjoining states of Niger, Kaduna, Zamfara, Sokoto, and any other state the bandits may find safe haven. Theo Pachemba also called on the military to increase its surveillance and track the bandits.
Such as lending practices.
Meanwhile, a bill for an act to repeal the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, CAP, B3-LFN 2004, and reenact the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act 2020 has passed second reading in the Senate. The bill is sponsored by Senators Sani Uba and Betty Apiafi. According to the sponsors of the bill, the proposed changes will strengthen banking and financial institutions in the country. President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, referred the bill to the Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions to report back in 4 weeks.
The Banking and Other Financial Institutions Act is long overdue for review and amendment. A strengthened legal framework is very critical and strategic to maintaining the health of a banking sector. A sanction regime that is effectively implemented will help check nefarious practices in the banking sector and prevent future distress.
You're welcome back to the Gavel. In the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, the federal government adopted some fiscal measures to manage the situation. Now, one of such measures include import duty and value-added tax waivers on essential health and medical supplies. But the Senate is asking the federal government to expand these waivers to some critical drugs commonly used by Nigerians.
In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, the federal government, on the recommendation of the World Health Organization, adopted some fiscal measures to manage the pandemic. One of such policies includes import duty and value-added tax waivers on essential health and medical supplies.
All medical supplies.
However, a federal lawmaker feels this is not enough and wants the waiver on import duty and VAT to be extended to anti-malaria drugs and medication to treat hypertension, cancer, and diabetes.
Note, however, that the import duty and tax waivers granted by the federal government on medical supplies as operated by Nigerian Customs Service did not extend to essential pharmaceutical drugs such as anti-malaria, anti-diabetics, anti-hypertensive, anti-cancer, and several others needed by children and the elderly. The elderly being most vulnerable group of people to COVID-19 infection. In the absence of globally accepted treatment protocol for the dreaded COVID-19, most clinicians in Nigeria have adopted combination of different drugs regimen, including drugs already in use daily for the treatment of other ailments, thereby putting immense pressure on the existing supply chain, leading to a spike in prices on commonly consumed drugs. Aware also that the disruption in economic activities and the total relaxed lockdown of several states in the country as part of measures to control the spread of COVID-19 pandemic in the country have adversely affected the disposal income of most people to purchase essential drugs such as anti-malaria, anti-diabetics, anti-hypertensive, anti-cancer drugs, thereby increasing the vulnerability of people with such ailments to COVID-19 infection.
The motion is supported by his colleagues and recommendations adopted.
You would agree with me that this is an emergency, and in this emergency, the aged are particularly vulnerable. I therefore agree with Senator Uba that because the aged are more vulnerable because of the underlying ailments that they carry, including diabetes, hypertension, asthma, cancers, etc., it is important for us to make the drugs available to treat same easy to have. I therefore agree with him that it is important that we have waivers in relation to these drugs to make them easily available so that our people can access them. I speak not for all time. What I mean is in this moment that we have this crisis.
Many waivers and so on have been given to pharmaceutical industries to import raw materials so that to bring the level of their production to standard. And if we look at the books very well, what they need to do is to apply again to include all this. That is to apply to Federal Ministry of Finance, where they grant the waivers. But what have they been producing? Well, I was surprised that Madagascar is bringing in their own concoction and we are running after it. Whereas we have a lot of pharmacists, trained ones, who are all into all this in Nigeria. We don't have confidence in them. By the time we now move that we want to support them, the Orthodox doctor will say it's fake. There is no synergy between the two of them, both the traditional medicine and the Orthodox. We have seen what Madagascar has brought and the bill they have brought. We have to encourage our own local producer, particularly the pharmaceutical industries, to see to it that they produce what we need.
Just as the Senate recommends an extension of waivers on import duties and VAT for these drugs, a federal lawmaker reminds the Senate of a brewing crisis in the power sector as a result of the negative impacts of COVID-19. Senator Gabriel Suswam says the Nigerian electricity supply industry has been severely affected by the pandemic, as DISCOs reported 50% loss of their average monthly revenue collection for March and April of 2020.
The importance of uninterrupted power supply to critical segment of the economy like the manufacturing sector cannot be overemphasized, as the manufacturing sector relies heavily on uninterrupted power supply to thrive. Aware that prior to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic and its attendant negative impact on the Nigerian electricity supply industry, the NESI was already facing teething operational constraints, including the absence of cost-reflective tariff, inadequate enumeration and metering of customers, limited access to funds for investment, poor revenue generation, and high level of aggregate technical, commercial, and collection losses. Alarm that the COVID-19 pandemic has further impacted negatively on the NESI, as DISCOs reported 50% losses of the average monthly average revenue collection for the month of March and April 2020, respectively, even as the federal government continued to harp on the need for stable electricity supply, especially during this pandemic. Further alarm that if the negative impact of COVID-19 on the NESI continues without emergency financial intervention from the federal government, DISCOs already facing dwindling revenue in the wake of the pandemic may not be able to meet their remittance obligation to the market as set by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission (NEC) in December 2019 tariff order.
I would like to believe, as a country, Nigeria will produce gas. Today, gas is the #1 input into power generation. And I believe also that that gas, this God-given resource, should be to the benefit of this country. I see no reason why we should be charged to generate power, we charge gas at international market rate.
There is no difference between NEPA and DISCOs. You hardly see electricity at a grassroots level. Everybody now is talking about prepaid meter. How many of them have prepaid meters? We are running on estimated bills. You see a community that has not seen electricity for 6 months, they will send thousands of bills to such communities.
The upper chamber is also asking the federal government to urgently expedite action towards the completion of the Ajaokuta steel project.
A working steel plant.
This request was made after a federal lawmaker, in a motion, reminds the Senate the benefits of the steel project when completed to the Nigerian economy.
Nigeria imports over 2.3 trillion naira of steel and allied products every year. Our own steel industry will therefore be a tangible foreign exchange earner and saver for our fragile economy. Concludes that a completed Ajaokuta steel plant, in no doubt, will present a huge benefit to our bid for economic diversification. It will be a huge foreign exchange earner and saver for the country, and employment generation thereby help greatly in reducing the current wave of youth unrest, kidnapping, and banditry in the country.
Some lawmakers argued that the project will also address the unemployment challenge in the country.
Mr. President, you will recall that in the 6th and 7th Senate, I spoke extensively on many occasions about the need to rehabilitate this iron and steel complex. And Mr. President, even though at that time I was in the other party, I condemned in very strong terms the privatization exercise carried out by that government that was in power. Privatization led to all forms of unemployment in our nation. Structural unemployment, unemployment, seasonal unemployment. Every form of unemployment came up after privatization.
I want to appeal that this motion should extend to, including the completion of Ajaokuta Okaba Otukpo rail line, because that rail line is actually supposed to be the major avenue for transporting the coal from Okaba, which is going to be acting as this major source of energy to the Ajaokuta Steel Complex. So the completion of that rail line should be part of this implementation program. Otherwise, whatever you do at Ajaokuta Steel Complex will be an exercise in futility, because there will not be enough power to fuel the activities at the Ajaokuta State Complex. So the completion of the Ajaokuta Okaba rail line to me is very, very important and should be part and very much part of this integrated program to reactivate Ajaokuta Steel.
Now, this is where we call it a day on this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.